Raiders fans, today's discussion comes loaded with emotion, frustration, and that raw honesty that only this fan base brings to the table. Anyone who has followed this team closely knows exactly how intense the environment gets when things start to fall apart on the field. And right now, the energy around the quarterback position has been building to a boiling point. It has reached a moment where everything Gino Smith does is under a microscope. Every throw, every misread, every moment where he hesitates in the pocket becomes ammunition for a crowd that has heard enough, seen enough, and finally snapped. And you can almost feel how exhausted he is with all of it, because the noise has not let up for weeks. The thing is, Raider Nation doesn't hold back. Never has. Never will. This is a fan base known for being loud, passionate, unforgiving, and absolutely relentless when things aren't going the way they believe they should. They'll ride with you when you show fight, when you leave every ounce of effort on that field, when you stand in front of the cameras and own your mistakes. But the second they sense that you are folding, or worse, turning on them, the atmosphere changes instantly. And with Gino, after the last press conference where he expressed frustration and basically invited every ounce of blame toward himself, the reaction completely shifted. When that clip surfaced of him apparently flipping off a fan, it was almost symbolic. You could argue whether he meant it, whether the moment got to him, whether he simply reached his limit. But honestly, after the way things have spiraled this season, who could blame him for finally snapping back? It was like both sides had been poking each other for so long that one of them eventually had a crack. But flipping someone off or hugging them after the game wouldn't have changed anything. Because at this point, no matter what he does, a portion of the fan base is going to react the exact same way. If he threw 3 touchdowns today, people would still say the loss was on him. If he had some miraculous drive, people would still say he hesitated or that he missed a red earlier. Once the crowd turns, it is almost impossible to regain that trust. That's why the moment his name was announced before kickoff, the boos washed over the stadium like a wave. It didn't matter that he connected on a long throw early. It didn't matter that he tried to settle into the game. The frustration was already set in stone, and it kept building with every sack, every stall drive, every ball thrown just a step too far or a moment too late. Even on rare plays where the pocket held up and he had time, he wasn't capitalizing. It became this cycle where the offensive line was collapsing, but even in the few snaps where they weren't, he was still missing opportunities. And once that pattern forms, the entire offense starts to look lost. You can see it in his movement too. There was this expectation that his mobility would be a huge asset. People thought he might be able to escape pressure, extend plays, maybe scramble for a few yards when everything else fell apart. But every time he gets into open space, it feels like the panic sets in. There were moments today where he had nothing but green grass ahead of him, and instead of attacking the end zone, he stumbled or hesitated like he didn't know what came next. It almost feels like once he clears that first wave of defenders, he freezes. And Raider Nation notices those things. They always notice. Even in the press conference after the game, when he once again repeated the same line about putting the blame on himself, it didn't land the same way anymore. When you say it one time, it sounds like accountability. When you keep saying it, it starts to sound like a shield, like a line you repeat, just because that is what a quarterback is expected to say when things get ugly. But fans don't want recycled phrases. They want answers. They want improvement. They want something to change on Sundays. And right now, none of that feels close. The argument about switching quarterbacks came up again today. When people in the crowd started chanting for Aiden O'Connell, it wasn't because they suddenly believed he was a savior. It was because they feel trapped in the cycle they're watching. But deep down, everyone knows swapping Gino for AOC isn't going to fix what's broken. The offensive line is nowhere near where it needs to be for any quarterback to succeed. You could put anyone behind that line, and they'd still get swallowed up. And that's the part that complicates everything. Because yes, Gino is struggling massively, but he's also playing behind a line that allowed 10 sacks today. 10. When you hit double digits, you're flirting with the worst statistical performances the league has ever seen in a single game. Even with that, you still can't excuse the missed throws. You still can't ignore the times he had a clean pocket and overthrew a receiver who had already created separation. Those are the plays that make the conversation so messy. Because the truth is, everyone on that offense shares blame. From the line, giving up pressure in seconds, to the play callers designing schemes that aren't helping the quarterback, to Gino making decisions that are only putting them deeper into trouble. It's a full system failure. But when someone stands in front of the media and says, "Blame me," that spotlight becomes even brighter. And for Gino, that spotlight is burning. Even fans who once defended him are turning because the repeated mistakes are getting harder to watch. The crowd that boos him is the same crowd that lines up near the tunnel after the game, holding jerseys, calling for attention, hoping for a wave or a signature. Raider Nation can heckle you with full force, then switch into fan mode the moment you're within reach. That's just part of the culture. They'll roast you, and then ask for an autograph 2 minutes later. And honestly, that's what makes this fan base unique. They expect respect, but they also expect accountability. They'll call you out, but when you walk past them, they suddenly just want that moment, a small interaction, a connection to the players they watch every week. It's chaotic, it's emotional, and sometimes it doesn't make sense, but that is Raider Nation in its purest form. What really stood out as the game went on was how the tension between the crowd and Gino kept building. Every incomplete pass, every sack, every moment where he looked unsure triggered another wave of frustration from the stands. And when the offense trotted off the field after yet another short drive, the boos that echoed through the stadium were impossible to ignore. It wasn't just disappointment anymore. It was collective exhaustion. People were fed up with the same patterns repeating week after week, and the energy around the team felt heavy, almost suffocating. You could practically feel it sitting on everyone's shoulders, players included. But what makes this situation even more chaotic is the strange dynamic that plays out the moment the game ends. During the action, fans are shouting, groaning, letting out everything they bottled up throughout the week. But once the final whistle blows and the players start heading toward the tunnel, the atmosphere flips. Suddenly, you hear fans calling out names like they didn't just spend 3 hours yelling at those same players. People rush to the barricades, waving jerseys and hats, hoping someone stops for a quick autograph. It's a confusing whiplash of emotions that perfectly represents what it means to support this team. You can criticize the players all game long, but the moment they walk past you, the frustration fades just enough for admiration to take over. And that's why this situation with Gino is so complicated. There are fans who genuinely like him as a person, who appreciate the way he owns up to mistakes, who want to believe he can turn things around. But they're also watching an offense sputter week after week, with drives collapsing before they even start. They see a quarterback who looks less confident each time he takes the field, and they see an offensive line that collapses so often it feels like the defense is lining up in the backfield. It becomes this perfect storm of negativity where you're not quite sure who to blame, but you know you have to blame someone. The tough part is that calling for a quarterback change feels like an easy answer, even though it really isn't. People shouting Aiden O'Connell's name seem to forget how inconsistent he was when he had his own stretch as a starter. It's not like he's some hidden star waiting to be unleashed. He's a young quarterback still figuring things out, and throwing him behind a line, giving up this many sacks would only set him up to fail. You could bring in 10 different quarterbacks, and the outcome would barely change when the pressure is hitting before the receivers even finish their routes. But right now, logic doesn't matter to fans who are tired of the same storyline. They want something different, even if that something doesn't actually solve anything. The truth is the entire offense feels broken. The play calling lacks rhythm. The timing is off. The confidence is gone. Every snap feels like a coin flip between disaster and survival. Even when they try to adjust the game plan, it still falls apart. Last week they leaned too heavily on play action without establishing the run, and the whole strategy crumbled. This week they tried speeding everything up, getting the ball out quickly, trying to avoid pressure from the jump. And somehow they still hit double digits in sacks. When a team tries two completely different offensive approaches in back-to-back weeks, and both of them get crushed, you know the problems run deeper than one quarterback. What's wild is that Gino can't even escape criticism in the moments where things aren't his fault. If a receiver slips on a route, it's his fault. If the left tackle misses a block and he gets drilled 2 seconds after the snap, it's his fault. If a defender jumps early and disrupts the timing of the entire play, somehow it still circles back to him. Once the fans decide you're the face of the problem, everything funnels toward you, no matter how many other things are collapsing around you. And when Gino stood in front of the cameras last week and basically told everyone to blame him for everything wrong with the team, he opened the door for exactly what we're seeing now. The biggest reason the backlash is so intense is because this offense doesn't show signs of growth. Usually when a team struggles, you can at least point to something improving, some small spark that gives fans a reason to hold on. But here, it feels like every week gets worse. Drives stall earlier. The mistakes are bigger. The body language is harder to hide. Even today, on plays where Gino actually had protection, he still missed throws that should have been completions. You start losing the mental battle before you even line up. And when fans sense that hesitation, that lack of spark, they lose patience fast. But the strangest part of all of this is how quickly that anger turns into quiet hope when the players walk past after the game. The same people who spent the entire afternoon booing suddenly turn into kids at a parade, calling out names, waving arms, hoping for a second of attention. And in a way, that reaction is the most honest one. Because deep down, fans don't boo because they hate the players. They boo because they care so much it drives them crazy when the team they love keeps falling short. The criticism isn't about disrespect, it's about heartbreak. And heartbreak often sounds like anger. Still, for Gino, the pressure is reaching the point where something has to give. You can see it in the way he talks after games. You can see it in the way he reacts on the sideline. You can see it in his posture after sacks, like the weight of the season is physically pulling him down. And that's what makes this entire situation feel like it's heading toward a breaking point. If the offensive line keeps playing like this, if the timing stays off, if the communication keeps failing, then no quarterback is going to survive the rest of the season without getting torn apart by both the pass rush and the fans. What makes it tougher is that every mistake now feels bigger than it really is. When Gino overthrows a receiver, the reaction isn't frustration, it's outrage. When he trips on a run or hesitates in open space, people treat it like proof that he shouldn't be on the field. And when the crowd boos him before halftime, after halftime, during the introductions, you know the relationship between player and fan base is slipping into territory that might be impossible to repair. Yet even with everything going wrong, there's still that tiny voice in the back of every fan's mind hoping for a miracle turnaround. Hoping that maybe all this pushing, all this frustration, all this noise might finally trigger something in him. Not because they expect him to become a superstar overnight, but because no one wants to watch the season collapse this early. Everyone wants something to believe in again. And that's the weird contradiction of Raider Nation. You can be furious at a player 1 minute and cheering for him the next. You could spend all game yelling that he shouldn't be starting, then ask for his autograph at the tunnel. It's messy, emotional, and unpredictable. But that's what makes this fan base one of the most intense and loyal groups in the league. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on our Las Vegas Raiders. And don't be shy. Drop your thoughts on the news in the comments below. ESPN confirms. The NFL world is buzzing after reports that the Las Vegas Raiders have reportedly secured cornerback Sauce Gardner in a blockbuster move that could completely reshape their secondary. While official details remain closely guarded, sources suggest that the deal sends shockwaves through the league, hinting at a strategic overhaul for the Raiders' defensive backfield. Gardner, who has long been regarded as one of the most dynamic young corners in the game, is said to bring an unmatched blend of athleticism, anticipation, and lockdown coverage skills to Las Vegas. Insiders are speculating wildly about the impact of this acquisition. With Gardner's ability to shadow elite receivers and disrupt passing lanes, the Raiders' secondary could become one of the most feared units in the NFL. Fans and analysts alike are imagining scenarios where Gardner teams up with existing talents to form a unit capable of dominating opposing quarterbacks. The whispers in NFL circles suggest that this move is not just about immediate defensive upgrades. It could signal a larger strategy to make the Raiders a perennial threat in the league's toughest division. The trade has already sparked debate on social media, with pundits weighing in on how Gardner's presence might influence the team's schemes, coverage packages, and even its draft priorities moving forward. Some are calling it a game changer, while others question whether the Raiders' current roster can fully capitalize on his talents. One thing seems certain: wherever Gardner goes, he shifts the dynamics of the game, forcing opponents to rethink their aerial attacks. Though the league has yet to issue an official statement, the buzz is undeniable. Rumors of potential domino effects are circulating. Other teams could respond with moves of their own, setting off a chain reaction of trades and signings. For now, the focus is squarely on Las Vegas, where fans are already envisioning highlight reel plays and lockdown coverages that could define a new era for the franchise. If even a fraction of these reports prove true, the Raiders may have just made a move that will echo across the NFL for seasons to come. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay updated with exclusive news about our Las Vegas Raiders, be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that like button. We can't wait to hear your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next video.